I came home from deployment to find a stranger standing on my porch. Arms crossed, clipboard tight against her chest, she wore that fixed, sugar-poison smile I'd seen her use on other neighbors when she wanted something. Her name was HOA Karen, 52, self-appointed queen of bylaws, fines, and intimidation. The desert dust was still on my boots, the hum of a C-17 still in my ears, when she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You can't be here. This property isn't yours anymore." The sun was low, my uniform still creased from the flight, and I felt the air tighten. She didn't blink. She just pushed a folded document toward me with her acrylic nails, highlighted lines and fake stamps glinting in the light. "The HOA voted to sell it. You didn't pay fees for 2 years. We auctioned it off cheap." Her voice was practiced, a blade sharpened on other victims. "Before we move forward, comment down from where you're watching right now. Tell me what time it is there, because when I tell you how this went down, you're going to want to remember where you were sitting." I stared at her without speaking. This land was my grandfather's. I had grown up here. The oak tree out back still had my initials carved under the bark. I had prepaid every HOA fee before deploying, copies of the checks tucked into my rucksack next to my orders. The desert had left me with scars, but it hadn't taken my memory. Karen thought she'd met another soft neighbor she could bully. She had no idea she was standing in front of someone who'd spent the last 2 years under fire, learning how to plan, strike, and win. She tried to step between me and the door. "The new owner could call the cops," she warned, lips curling. I unlocked the door with my own key, walked past her, and set my bag down in the hallway. "Karen," I said evenly, "I am the new owner." Her fake smile twitched. "What are you talking about?" From my rucksack, I pulled a thick envelope, sealed and notarized. 3 weeks ago, while still overseas, I'd executed a purchase contract through my JAG contact, not just for my lot, but for every empty parcel in the subdivision. The documents transferred title back to me, plus the roads, the gates, and the so-called common areas HOA Karen believed she controlled. She laughed, but it came out thin. "You couldn't afford that." I cut her off. "The U.S. Army paid me very well for the last 2 years, and I have friends in the right places." Her smile was gone now, replaced by a flash of fear. But she still didn't know the half of it. Because what I didn't tell her was that I hadn't just bought back my land. I'd bought the entire subdivision, and every single one of their HOA rules now had to go through me. In my head, even as she sputtered, I was already planning what I'd do first. That night, as I unrolled my sleeping bag on the floor of my reclaimed house, I thought about the years of HOA notices, the fines for imaginary infractions, the neighbors who had been bullied into selling. I remembered every time Karen's clipboard had appeared like a weapon. And I made a decision. This wasn't going to be a quiet return. This was going to be a reckoning. By the next morning, Karen had rallied her little army. 3 of them waited at my gate, matching clipboards, smug expressions, and one man with a camera like he was filming a reality show. They didn't even let me step outside before Karen barked, "You can't just come back and change everything. This neighborhood has standards. We'll take you to court if we have to." I leaned on the gate, calm as a rifleman lining up a shot. "Karen, you might want to read the updated property records before you talk about court." One of her friends, a wiry man with a mustache too big for his face, smirked. "We've been running this HOA for 15 years. We know the law." "Good," I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. "Then you'll love this." On speaker came the voice of Captain Rivera, my old buddy now with the Judge Advocate General's Corps. His tone was all steel and statute. "This property is legally owned by Mr. Blake, purchased in full. Any attempt to trespass, alter property records, or enforce fraudulent fees will result in criminal charges." The camera guy's hand started shaking. Karen's jaw clenched. "You can't threaten us," she snapped. "That wasn't a threat," I replied, stepping closer. "That was a warning." Karen tried one last card. "Fine. You might own the land, but we control the roads, the gates, the amenities." I grinned. "Not anymore. Those were part of the purchase, too. You're standing on my road right now." For a second, nobody spoke. The only sound was the click of the camera guy slowly turning it off. Karen's eyes darted left and right, like she was looking for a way to escape the conversation. She finally hissed, "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't. Because she still didn't know why the HOA had sold everything so cheap, or what I had planned for the people who tried to steal my home. As the sun set, I sat on the porch with coffee in hand, boots still dusty. My grandfather's land smelled like pine and cold air. Out on the street, a black SUV rolled slowly past the gate. It didn't belong to anyone in the neighborhood. The tinted window lowered just enough for me to see a man in a suit staring back, expressionless. He didn't wave, didn't blink, just kept driving. The next morning, a thick envelope was shoved under my door. Inside, blueprints. Not for a house, for an entire private resort complex. Hotels, tennis courts, a lake expansion, stamped Phase 1, approved by HOA board. That's when it clicked. They hadn't sold my land because of unpaid fees. They'd sold it because they had a buyer lined up, a developer with deep pockets, and I had been in the way. Karen had planned to make a fortune. But the developer's contract was with the HOA, not with me. And now that I owned the subdivision, they'd have to renegotiate from scratch on my terms. I picked up the phone and called Rivera. "Time to make a little noise?" He chuckled. "I've been waiting for you to say that." That afternoon, a military transport truck pulled into the neighborhood. Not full of soldiers, full of equipment, drones, cameras, mobile security gates, the kind of tech that made people nervous just looking at it. Karen came storming down the street like her hair was on fire. "What is all this?" I didn't answer right away, just pointed to the sign we were installing at the entrance. "Warning. Military training and surveillance area. Trespassers will be reported." Her face went pale. You can't turn this into a military zone." I stepped close enough for her to hear the low tone in my voice. "Karen, you made the rules here. I'm just following them to the letter." And the truth was, this was just step 1 of my payback. Because next, I was going to make sure every shady deal she'd ever made came to light. 3 days after the equipment arrived, the neighborhood looked like a forward operating base disguised as suburbia. Mobile gates at the entrances, camera towers rising where the HOA's welcome signs had been. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering, half terrified and half delighted. Karen's little empire of notices and clipboards was cracking, but she was too arrogant to retreat. She tried a new tactic: paper warfare. Bright yellow violation slips appeared on my door every morning like clockwork. Unsanitary conditions. Improper use of security equipment. Threat to neighborhood safety. Each one signed with her swooping signature like a royal decree. The irony didn't escape me. The woman who had stolen my land was now citing me for trespassing on my own property. But what she didn't know was that every slip she posted was building my case. Rivera had already begun a federal file. Service members' Civil Relief Act violations, mail fraud, extortion, even RICO. Every fabricated citation was another nail in the HOA's coffin. By the end of the week, Karen escalated from notices to intimidation. A black Mercedes SUV rolled through the gate again one morning, this time parking right in front of my driveway. Out stepped Mr. Carrington, tall, immaculate suit, mirrored sunglasses, the developer whose blueprints had been in that envelope. Karen trailed behind him like a loyal courtier. He didn't introduce himself. "Mr. Blake, you're sitting on land that belongs to my project," he said, voice smooth but sharp. I sipped my coffee. "Funny. County records say otherwise." Karen jumped in. "Blake, this is Mr. Carrington. He's investing millions here. You can't just ruin—" I held up a hand. "Karen, adults are talking." Carrington's smile thinned. "I'll make this easy. Triple. Market value for your parcel. Cash today." I pretended to think, then shook my head. "Not for sale." Something flickered in his expression. "You don't understand the scope of what we're building. The HOA had an agreement." "The HOA," I cut him off, "no longer exists. I dissolved it yesterday." Karen gasped. "You what?" "No board, no bylaws, no fake fines," I said. "Just me and my land." Carrington removed his sunglasses slowly, eyes sharp now. "You're making a mistake. People who get in my way regret it. People who threaten a decorated Army vet on his own property usually regret it faster." That's when Rivera stepped out from my porch, still in uniform, holding a folder thick with documents. "Mr. Carrington," he said, "this conversation is being recorded for evidence. Would you like to continue?" The developer's jaw tightened. He turned to leave without another word, Karen scurrying after him. But as they walked away, I caught Carrington's low voice. "We'll handle this another way." I knew then the fight was far from over, and I also knew exactly how to hit them where it hurt most, because I had something they didn't know existed, a secret my grandfather had left buried deep in the property records. That night, I climbed into the attic and pulled out a dust-covered lockbox my grandfather had given me before he passed. Inside were deeds, maps, and one document so old the paper felt like it might crumble in my hands. A land patent signed over a century ago, granting my family perpetual mineral and water rights for the entire area, not just my parcel. I called Rivera. He whistled low. "Blake, this isn't just ownership. This makes you the only person legally allowed to approve any excavation, construction, or even water use in that subdivision. The developer's resort is dead in the water, literally." We scheduled a public meeting at the community hall, inviting every homeowner. Word spread fast. Half were angry at me, half were sick of the HOA but scared to speak up. Karen sat in the front row, arms crossed, Carrington standing in the back with his sunglasses on again. I stepped to the podium and held up the original patent for everyone to see. "For over 100 years," I said, "my family has held exclusive mineral and water rights for this land. That means no resort, no HOA-controlled water fees, no unauthorized construction. And from today forward, I'm removing every single restriction the HOA ever put on you." Gasps filled the room. A man in the crowd asked, "So we can park our RVs here now?" "You can park a tank in your driveway if you want," I said, and the room erupted in cheers. Karen jumped to her feet, shouting over the noise, "This is illegal! He's lying! You can't just—" I slid a thick folder across the table to Rivera. "Captain, would you care to explain the penalties for fraud, extortion, and illegal property sales?" Rivera opened the folder and began reading off names. Karen's name came first, followed by the charges about to be filed. The color drained from her face. Carrington didn't move, but his jaw clenched tight. He knew the game had just changed. Because I wasn't stopping at saving my land, I was about to dismantle every dirty deal they'd ever made. In the days that followed, we filed lawsuits, fraudulent conveyance, illegal foreclosure, extortion. We sent notices to federal agencies, the Department of Justice, the State Attorney General, the DOD's Service Members Civil Relief Act Office. We froze the developers' permits. We unsealed HOA financial records and found phantom expenses, shell companies, kickbacks. Karen tried to rally the board, but there was no board left. Her cronies started resigning one by one. Neighbors who had feared her began forwarding me emails, screenshots, whispered stories of fines and threats. Each document was another round in the magazine. Meanwhile, the military equipment stayed visible at the subdivision entrances, not soldiers, cameras, gates, drones, and a legal notice citing 18 U.S.C. paragraph 113.8.2 on trespass of military installations. Technically, it was private security under my contract, but the optics were devastating. Karen's kingdom looked like a demilitarized zone under federal watch. Local news picked up the story. Decorated veteran uses federal law to take back land from HOA. Viewers loved it. Comment sections lit up. Neighbors who'd been silent started stopping me on the street to shake my hand. Some brought pies, others brought old violation notices they wanted to see burned. For the first time, Karen looked smaller. She stopped striding across lawns. Her sun hat drooped. Carrington's Mercedes stopped appearing. But I wasn't finished. We scheduled a second town hall, this time to vote on dissolving all remaining HOA covenants. The room overflowed. Even people from other neighborhoods came to watch. Rivera stood at my side in uniform. Karen sat near the door, arms crossed, face pale. I opened with one line. For years, this HOA operated as a private kingdom. Today, we end that. Cheers, applause. Someone shouted, "About time!" I walked the crowd through the evidence. Fraudulent sales, hidden developer contracts, misuse of HOA funds. Rivera read the criminal statutes. Then we held the vote. By an overwhelming margin, the homeowners dissolved the HOA. Karen tried to interrupt, but the microphone cut her off. "Your time is up," someone in the back called. She turned toward Carrington for backup, but he was already slipping out the door. The next morning after the second town hall, the subdivision felt different. Quiet. No more yellow notices flapping on doors. No more Karen stalking the sidewalks with her clipboard. Even the air seemed lighter, like the tension had burned off overnight. For the first time in years, people were sitting on their porches drinking coffee, together. Kids rode bikes down the street without parents glaring at their lawns. But the real hammer hadn't even dropped yet. Rivera had filed the federal complaint the night before, and the Attorney General's office had opened a case. Within days, subpoenas landed like precision strikes. HOA bank records, email servers, Karen's personal communications, all of it seized. Carrington's company froze the project and pulled its crews off-site. Without water rights or permits, the resort was a paper castle. Karen tried one last maneuver. She showed up at my gate early one morning, no clipboard this time, just a manila envelope clutched to her chest. Her sun hat was gone. Her hair hung limp. "We can make a deal," she said, voice stripped of its fake sugar. "I'll resign quietly, no charges. Just give me a chance to leave this behind." I looked at her through the bars of the gate. "You sold my land while I was deployed. You lied to a federal officer. You tried to ruin your neighbors for profit. The time for quiet deals is over." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a moment I thought she might cry, but then she turned and walked away without another word. That was the last time I saw her on this property. 2 weeks later, the developer's lawyers folded. They signed a settlement acknowledging the resort had no legal standing. The subdivision's mineral and water rights were recorded permanently in my name. Carrington disappeared from the story as quickly as he'd entered it, his Mercedes no longer haunting the gate. We held one final community meeting, not in the beige hall where Karen had ruled with her clipboard, but on the open green where kids used to play before she banned it. This time, there was no podium, just a folding table with papers to sign. Rivera stood with me in uniform, a quiet presence as homeowners lined up to remove their names from HOA contracts forever. When the last signature dried, I took a breath and made my announcement. From this day forward, I said, this community governs itself. No board, no bylaws, no fake fines. Your property is your own. A cheer went up. People clapped each other on the back. Someone set off a small firework that arced over the street. After years of fear, the neighbors felt free. Then I did something that surprised even me. I set a metal trash barrel in the center of the green. Bring your violation notices, I called. Let's end this the right way. One by one, neighbors came forward, dropping yellow slips, fee demands, and letters into the barrel. Someone lit a match. Flames roared, devouring the paper symbols of Karen's power. People cheered louder. Some cried. Rivera leaned close. Never thought I'd see a bonfire like this stateside? I smiled. Neither did I. In the weeks that followed, the subdivision transformed. The gates stayed open. Lawns became gardens. Driveways filled with RVs, boats, trucks. Without Karen's shadow, neighbors organized their own block parties and cleanup days. Freedom didn't bring chaos. It brought community. News crews came back for a follow-up. Decorated veteran liberates neighborhood from rogue HOA, the headline read. The story went national. Emails flooded in from other communities asking for advice. I sent them copies of the statutes, the Service Members Civil Relief Act, and my grandfather's land patent template. Karen's fate unfolded quietly but definitively. The federal case went forward. She was indicted on mail fraud, extortion, and illegal property sales. Her mugshot replaced her old HOA newsletter photo on local news. Carrington's company lost its investor, and the resort site returned to prairie grass. I didn't attend her trial. I didn't need to. Watching my neighbors reclaim their porches was enough. On the one-year anniversary of my return, we held a barbecue in the same green where the fire barrel had burned. No speeches, no agenda, just food and music. Kids ran through sprinklers. Dogs chased frisbees. Rivera showed up in civilian clothes and laughed when someone handed him a plate of ribs. A neighbor I barely knew raised a glass. To Blake, he said, for giving us back our home. I shook my head. To all of you, I said. You stood up, you voted, you took it back yourselves. But inside I felt something deeper, not triumph, not vengeance, but a steady peace. The kind that only comes when you draw a line, hold it, and watch the darkness retreat. Before sunset, I walked the perimeter of the subdivision, the same loop Karen used to patrol with her clipboard. Only now there were no violation notices, no watchful eyes, just the sound of sprinklers and laughter. At the edge of my grandfather's land, I stopped and looked out over the lots I'd fought for. This had started with injustice and outrage. It had passed through strategy, law, and federal muscle. But it ended with satisfaction, not because Karen and Carrington had fallen, but because my community had risen. I thought about the envelope Karen had held that last morning at my gate. I never opened it. It was evidence in the federal case now. Whatever excuses she'd written inside didn't matter. The only document that mattered was the one in my pocket. My grandfather's patent, folded but unbroken. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, I realized something. I hadn't just taken back a subdivision. I'd taken back time, space, and dignity for every person who'd been bullied into silence. And if you're listening to this story now, wondering if you're trapped under an HOA or a Karen of your own, remember this. Laws exist. Records exist. You're not powerless. Sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't rage. It's knowledge, patience, and the will to act. That night, as the barbecue wound down, a kid rode past me on a bike with streamers. He called out, "Thanks, Mr. Blake," and vanished down the street. I smiled. For the first time since deployment, I felt truly home.